So I go over, I'm like, yes, chef. And he was just like, did you plate this cheese? And I was like, I did. And he was like, you see the chervil on your cheese? And I was like, chervil's a herb. I was like, yeah. And he was like, what do you think? And I was like, maybe it was overwatered a little. It had like little yellow tips on the little tiny leaf of the chervil. And he was like, you want to fix that? And I was like, yeah, sure. And he was like, hey, let me ask you something. I was like, what? He goes, did you come here from Baltimore to sabotage my restaurant?
Faden? Cut two.
Exterior. Interior.
Restaurant?
Bar. Club.
Day.
Night.
Action! Hey everyone, happy 2025, happy new year. This is Restaurant Fiction, the show that reviews fictional restaurants, bars, and clubs in TV and film. My name is Monis Rose. We are starting this new year off with a bang. We are broadcasting our live panel at New York Comic Con. You see, last year we were invited to 2 Comic Cons. One was a filmmakers panel in Los Angeles, and one was a culinary creative chef panel, and that was all the way in New York City. New York City, that's right, the 212. And it was a quirky panel. At least that's what one of our guests said. Let me paint you the picture. It was at the Javits Center, and we were going on a Sunday morning. We feared a little bit that it was going to be dead. No one was going to show. I mean, we're assuming the creme de la creme time is Saturday night. We were also a little worried because we were going on before this huge, mega Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary panel. Well, 10 minutes before the show on Sunday morning, there was no one. I went outside to get my producer, and the security guard said to me, "What shall I do with all of them?" I responded, "Them?" She pointed to the ground. There was a line of about 75 deep of cosplayers, fans, people who loved either our panelists or loved all things comic books or all things food, TV, and film. Yeah, a 75 deep line of people ready to see the Restaurant Fiction first ever New York Comic Con panel. I am still pinching myself. I had to say to the security guard and to many of the people in line, "Are you sure you're in the right panel?" They were, because they wanted to see our guests. Number 1 was Food Network celebrity baker Duff Goldman. 2, Great British Bake Off star Kim Joy, also cookbook author in her own right and graphic novelist. 3, once again, New York Times best-selling cookbook author Michael Ruhlman. And 4, co-author of hit graphic novels Get Jiro and Hungry Ghosts, Joel Rose. After the panel, Michael Ruhlman says to me, "That was a quirky panel." I took a step back to think about that, to ponder. He's right. Restaurant Fiction is quirky. It's for anyone who loves TV, food, and film. It's for anyone who has something to say about TV, food, and film. If you don't, or if you're not interested, this podcast is not for you, and you could tune us out. Luckily for us with Restaurant Fiction, we don't have brand guidelines. If you have a certain POV on TV, food, and film, come on by. And certainly all of these incredible panelists did. So we welcomed them with open arms. They delivered, they swung for the fences, and each one of them hit a grand slam. Here is our live New York Comic Con panel. We thank Reed Pop for just putting on an amazing convention and making us feel at home and treating us and our panelists like VIP stars. Crossing your fingers and our fingers for round 2 in 2025. Anyway, enjoy the show.
Thank you very much. It is, first of all, my name is Monis Rose. I am the host of the Restaurant Fiction Podcast. And what do we do? Well, it's simple. We review the fictional restaurants, bars, and clubs in TV and film. We break into probably the most important part of world building, and that is the fictional restaurant, bar, and club. We celebrate TV. We celebrate film. We celebrate food. We're combining that. You know, who am I? I'm a chef. I am a food journalist, and I am a screenwriter. So really, I have brought all of those worlds together and boom, into this collaborative mastermind. And who is a part of our first ever inaugural New York Comic Con podcast panel? Well, we have Mr. Duff Goldman right here to my left. Who is Duff? Well, you already know. You're clapping, so you already know. I mean, he is a graffiti artist turned baker. I mean, and he is a badass bass player. Then, obviously, to my left, you have Kim Joy right here. Oh, yeah. Not only for, I mean, she has the power to turn cakes into the cutest, most whimsical awesomeness. I mean, she just gives, pun intended, Kim Joy, she gives and spreads joy to the world. I mean, that's what she does. I mean, amazing. Then we have amazing New York Times best-selling author, cookbook writer, Michael Ruhlman. And then last but not least, we have Joel Rose, who wrote 2 amazing culinary graphic novels, Hungry Ghost and Get Jero, which right now is the toast of town in all of Hollywood, making deadline day in, day out. Anyway, yeah, and so how this is going to go, I mean, so thank you, and obviously when you even listen, so first of all, please like and subscribe to the Restaurant Fiction Podcast, especially if you like what you hear today. But yeah, how this is going to go is we're just going to have a nice little collaborative mastermind of awesome questions about food, TV, and film and their work, and then there's going to be about Q&A, about 15 minutes until the top of the hour. Cool with everyone?
Sounds good.
Awesome. All right. When all of you are creating a cookbook, and especially even your new cookbook, Kim Joy, how important is this story? How important is the storytelling process when, you're in the weeds, when you're in the thick of it?
Well, the story's everything. We're the only creature that cooks food, and we're the only creature that tells stories. Story is the dominant sound of our lives. When you combine the two, you've got a really rich world. That's the bottom line for me.
Duff?
Yeah, you know, with stories like there's there's a story that Anthony Bourdain tells in one of his books about when he was like a really little kid and he like ate his first oyster and he was like a little kid and it was like this sexual, sensual, amazing experience and he was like what, like something changed in him. Like, you know, he sort of like grew up and he had this very, very sort of like, core memory, strong connection, this vivid sort of description of him connecting with this, food. And it kind of taught me a lot about sort of like how we connect with stuff. There's things that we've all had from our childhoods, just from our lives, where you ate something at a certain point where something was going on. And maybe it was a point where you were going through some self-discovery, and you were sort of growing as a person, either as a kid and just sort of figuring out this weird world that you live in, or as an adult, you're going through some stuff. But like sometimes there's like food that sort of, is the lightning rod around which that experience will sort of coalesce. And that story that Anthony Bourdain told, it sort of gave me like almost like a reference or a framework to sort of like, how do I connect with something? How do I connect with a certain cookie that I made? So when I'm writing a cookbook, when I'm like introducing, okay, here is my great-grandmother's Russian tea cakes, and why I connect with those, and what it is about that specific cookie that really just makes my socks roll up and down. If that made any sense, sorry, that was a word.
No, it made perfect sense.
I think food and story give you primal opportunity to connect.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible gift to be able to set food in front of someone else and to share it with them, and also to create a story out of the air and to connect and to interrelate on that level is otherworldly.
All right, so Michael worked closely, just a little prerequisite, with Thomas Keller and Michael Simon in, in their early days as a chef and to create their cookbooks. So Michael, if you were working closely with Chef Carmy in creating a cookbook for the bear, what would that process look like? What would that look like? What would that relationship look like for you in designing that cookbook?
He would probably drive me crazy. It's interesting because Thomas Keller is so much a part of the bear. They've got sense of urgency up on the walls. They consulted with him. He had a perfection that Carmy really strives for but doesn't quite get until like quite at the end when they show up at the French Laundry. But what I hated in the third season was how they created dishes. He'd stand in this quiet kitchen and he'd just stare at this food, and they'd tweeze something on it, stare at it, and then he'd get mad and throw it in a Buster's bucket. And that just doesn't happen that way. That's not, dishes are created on the fly at 1 a.m. We've got to use up this shit and we walk in. What great dish can we make? And it's done. You don't do it like that. So that kind of pissed me off. So I'd say, Carmy, throw away the tweezers. Let's talk about story. Let's talk about why you're doing this. Why does it matter?
And Michael, you can ask actually the question for.
I've got a big question. It has to do with Marcus. Have you watched The Bear?
I have not.
Shit. Have you watched The Bear?
A little bit.
In the first season, okay, let me see. In the first season, there's a chef named Marcus, and he's working in what is a sandwich shop. First shit, it takes over a sandwich shop, and suddenly he finds that he loves pastry. And while they go online for the first time, and everyone is slammed or getting hammered, and Marcus is in the back icing a cake and putting little flowers on top. And it wouldn't happen. It's so, I could not suspend my disbelief for that. This would never happen. If you were a pastry chef working in a beef sandwich shop in Chicago, would you be working on your genoise?
No.
During lunch?
No, I'd be working on my au jus, and I'd be dipping myself.
Exactly.
Totally.
So anyway, you haven't seen it, so you can't comment on it, and damn it that you can't.
I know. It's just PTSD for it. I worked at French Laundry in the late 90s.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Late 90s, that's when I was working on his cookbook. Were you there when I was
I
there?
was, yeah.
Did we meet there?
I was a stage. I was back in the pastry hole.
Picking the frisee for that little salad, were you?
I did the chervil for that one. I did for this one cheese dish. So this is funny. So I'm working at French Laundry, and I think it was a very silent kitchen. It's quiet in there, and if Thomas says your name, you hear it, right? And so I'm plating cheese, and I'm working on the cheese, and all of a sudden I hear, "Duff, can I see you for a second?" And I was like, "Fuck." So I go over, I'm like, "Yes, chef," and he was just like, "Did you plate this cheese?" And I was like, "I did." And he was like, "You see the chervil on your cheese?" And I was like, "Chervil's an herb." I was looking, I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "What do you think?" And I was like, "Maybe it was overwatered a little. It had like little yellow tips on the little tiny leaf of the chervil." And he was like, you want to fix that?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And he was like, "Hey, let me ask you something." I was like, "What?" He goes, "Did you come here from Baltimore to sabotage my restaurant?" He never yelled. I never heard him raise his voice, but he would say stuff like that. You're just like, "I'm sorry, chef." Go.
Famously, yeah, he said he stopped yelling. He said, "I realized if I was yelling at somebody, it was already too late." Yeah. But you changed because of that, didn't you?
Oh yeah. I learned.
You'll never forget it.
Perfection at that place. I mean, you learn how to you go in, like, you serve something at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. When you do the same exact dish at 1 in the morning, it's just as good. That's like the stuff you learn there. You learn more about yourself. You learn how to dig deep, and like really you learn like the depths that you have to.
It's hard. People don't realize how hard it is. I mean, you were working in that kitchen for 14, 15 hours a day, and then cleaning that kitchen. And you clean that kitchen. You clean every inch of that kitchen. It is hard. It's so hard that Thomas said, I'd never seen a kitchen with skylights in it before, or carpeted mats instead of the black rubber mats. But he said, look, if I'm going to ask this kind of work from people, I want them to have natural sunlight, and I want them to be comfortable. It's that kind of smartness that's made him who he is.
Yeah, totally.
If all of you can choose a fictional character in TV or film to cook with or bake with, who are you choosing and why? And obviously, we're amongst people who love cosplay, who are fans of the characters. Yeah, which character do you want to cook and bake with?
It wouldn't be Jabba the Hutt.
Oh, really? I mean,
A little bit too sloppy in the kitchen.
he's probably though a big foodie.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, he likes.
I'd like to see him eating cake. He would be a good cake eater, I think. Well, see, I'm kind of fascinated by Wanda and her 60s kitchen and, and WandaVision. She would be fun to cook with, to riff on 60s classics in a very unusual way.
I feel like my answer may be expected is just Totoro. Who doesn't want to bake?
Who doesn't love Totoro?
And we could bake mini Totoros together. We could bake soot sprites amongst and then we could bake cat buses. It'd be great. And Totoro's got all the magical powers, so that could assist my baking. I think it'd be a really good relationship.
Yoda, right? It's gotta be Yoda. He's so because there's so many times when you're cooking, you're just tearing your hair out if you have hair, and Yoda would just be like, calm you must be. Right?
So put Yoda and Thomas Keller together in the kitchen. Who would be the alpha dog?
I mean, they're like both of them. Just like it's a gentle strength that they have.
And stretching it to you guys, but a little bit different question. So, yeah, when everyone buys all of your cookbooks and they look through, but they only want to choose one recipe that really expresses who you truly are. Like if they only could pick one recipe, doesn't matter their skill set, doesn't matter, they just want one. What recipe is that for both of you?
Well, I named my graphic novel Turtle Bread, so it would make sense that my one recipe would be turtle bread. I think that's the one when I was on the Bake Off that I did like little turtle shoe buns in a tempered chocolate sphere where you melt the chocolate and then reveal the turtles. I had to melt it multiple times actually because sometimes you melt it and then it all just caves in, and then all of them were covered in chocolate. So my backup plan, just in case that happened, was I gave them little cocktail umbrellas, little turtles, so just in case it rained on their head, they're protected. So probably that one, although that one specifically was shoe, not turtle bread. Anything involving a turtle. Is that allowed as an answer? Yeah.
100%, yeah.
So hard to picture.
Michael, you've written many cookbooks on, through the gamut. Now, I know you already just mentioned the cassoulet with Anthony Bourdain, but what is also that one recipe that defines who you are if, a person here has your entire collection of cookbooks?
I am not a baker. I'm kind of inept at it, which is why I fall back in like the the shortbread cookie, which is 3-2-1, 3 parts flour, 2 parts butter, 1 part sugar. Easy, beautiful, always comes out. To make a great cookie takes finesse and nuance. That's the difference. For me, savory, it's the roast chicken. It's the quintessential bring everybody together. It also teaches you how to cook. It teaches you how to make a stock. It teaches you how to roast. It's the most generous of all our offerings, and I guarantee that if you ask 100 chefs what's their favorite meal, the majority of them are going to say a beautifully roasted chicken. So that's my answer.
I am a Hollywood executive. I've asked this question to you already, Duff, but if you have the same answer or a different answer, but this is for everyone. But I'm the head of a studio. You have carte blanche, like $200 million to design your dream fictional restaurant. Like your dream fictional restaurant, your dream fictional world, all of you. What does that look like and why? And this is either a scripted movie, a scripted TV show. Yeah, floor is yours. Go. Anybody?
I would go totally retro and recreate how they. Has anybody seen the movie The Taste of Things? French movie that recreates the great classics. It's a brilliant, absolutely brilliant movie. If you love movies about food, you have to see The Taste of Things. I'd want to go retro and do a coal stove, a coal burning stove. I've always been fascinated by how it works, and they show it in this movie. That's the most beautiful kitchen I've ever seen in film history, and the technique is beautiful. They got in Pierre Gagnère as a consultant. All the food is brilliantly created as it was done in the late 1800s. And I would love to be able to cook over coal and try and master heat and iron. So that's what I would want to do and see and have a story around.
And Kim Joy?
Ooh,
Yeah.
all right. I'll spend all the money. It's going to be amazing. I would have, I'd love there to be robots, and like somewhere where you could go and you really wouldn't have to interact or anything. You could just have your own space. And maybe it'd be like virtual reality as well. So you have your own cubicle and then you can set it to how you want it to be. So you could just be like, I don't know, something, just a place where everyone can just make it what they want to be. And there would be a lot of very cute cakes and cute cookies. And yeah, I think all the customers would be just like animals, and people as well are welcome to. There'd be probably cats everywhere, something like that. It probably wouldn't pass food hygiene standards or something like that. But it's fine. It's any world where that would be fine.
At the beginning, especially, both of you mentioned, meeting the kids. Obviously, Duff, mentoring kids is huge with you. But, if you can even speak further, what do both of you, and I'm going to open up with both of you as well.
I think it's what brought us there. Like just listening to everybody, Duff, with your grandmother, that's what I remember, my Hungarian grandmother and cooking in her kitchen and just that delight. And then being able to replicate badly with my own kids is, it's full circle. And I think when we try to recreate food in our work, it brings us back to those safe, wonderful moments.
Thank you to all of the panelists. If you want to see and listen to more of Duff and Michael, well, go to our backlogs of restaurant fiction. That's right. They were both former guests. It was Duff's third time, and it was Michael's second time. And as for Kim, Joy, and Joel, you are welcome back anytime, all the time. Loved having every single one of you. Actually, if you watch the panel, it is fascinating how none of these panelists were personally connected, yet they all had a connection some way or another. I mean, Michael and Joel worked both closely with Anthony Bourdain. They had very personal anecdotes. Michael was actually writing the French Laundry cookbook in the late 90s when Duff was staging there. And then Kim, Joy, Duff, and Michael love anime. Well, who doesn't? Anyway, look them up look them up. They're always, I believe, Kim Joy just came out with a new cookbook, so please buy her amazing cookbook. Duff, obviously, he broadcasts that he has a new YouTube channel. He's selling on Etsy, but also he's on Goldbelly. He's everywhere. He has his whole line of cookbooks. Michael, please, please, please follow and subscribe to his Substack. The information he gives is fucking phenomenal. And as for Joel Rose, please give a read to Get Jiro and Hungry Ghosts. They'll make you scared, they'll make you frightened, but they'll also make you hungry. And as for us with Restaurant Fiction, like and subscribe. Listen to wherever you listen to your podcast or watch your YouTube shows. YouTube, that's right. And until our next episode, keep it real, keep it fresh, and keep it on the flip side.